Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Claire, for the introduction. I would like to begin with a heartfelt thank you to the Nuffield Australia team, and of course to the Australian Government's Future Drought Fund for sponsoring me. I will be forever grateful for this experience. A big thank you as well to all of those who have generously given their time to help me on this journey along the way. Together with my parents, my partner Miles and I help run our breeding and fattening operation in Arcadia Valley in central Queensland. And of course, a big thank you to my parents from home and to my partner Miles, who is here today, for their support over the last couple of years. To give you some context about my topic, while I was working as an agronomist, I heard a saying that we're constantly trying to kill the things that want to live and keep alive the things that want to die. And I've thought about this a lot since then, and I can't help but wonder why farming often feels like a fight against nature. And is this not the definition of unsustainable? Trying to find a balance between ecosystem health, productivity, and profitability felt like walking a very fine line and a constant trade-off. I genuinely felt as though nature was fragile and almost crumbling around us. But this led to one of my biggest realizations in the last couple of years, which is that maybe nature isn't actually fragile, and maybe it's inherently resilient. Certainly, constant pressures over time, whether they be environmental or human-induced, are absolutely degrading our global ecosystems. But the more I looked and observed, the more I saw traits emerge that actually build resilience. And so I want to share 3 of these traits and observations with you today, and also global examples of people who have built these traits into their personal lives, their businesses, and their farming systems to also build resilience. The first is that nature is adaptable, and ecosystems are never static. They are constantly responding and adapting to the pressures applied. And I have 2 examples of farmers who have also built adaptability into their lives through both personal and professional challenges. I think most of us know, I'm actually very happy that Fritz is here today. On your right-hand side are farmers Fritz and Andrea Bolton from Kununurra, and they have trialled well over 20 different crops to adapt to climate, isolation, and logistical challenges. They've also invested in several different industries for their region. They continue to think creatively and progressively, and they have a very strong focus on building both personal resilience, but also resilience for their entire community. And on the left-hand side is Zimbabwean farmer Rob Fletcher. And during a very challenging time, when Rob and his family couldn't leave their home, he started experimenting with old family chili sauce recipes and sharing it with friends and family. This soon became a commercial venture, and he now exports internationally. As Rob describes, a beautiful thing came from considerable hardship. And it's from examples like these and others that I learnt the importance of being adaptable and navigating adversity and of focusing on what I can control, which is how I choose to respond, how I build personal resilience, and of course, how my farming practices influence the expression of nature's adaptability. Number 2, I learnt that nature is incredibly complex and diverse, and these come together to create an inextricably linked web that is much harder to unravel than a monoculture or a simplified system. And livestock nutrition is one example of the incredible complexity of biological relationships that I want to talk about today. Dr. Fred Provenza from Utah State University has spent decades researching what he calls nutritional wisdom. And this refers to how livestock will self-select plants based on their individual nutritional requirements, but they will also select plants based on phytochemical and secondary compounds in order to self-medicate. And they can do this both prophylactically and therapeutically. I visited a quick example. So for example, if sheep are infected with internal parasites, they will increase their consumption of tannin-rich plants to effectively combat that parasite load and self-medicate. I visited several farmers in Australia who are incorporating this knowledge into their systems, and I have a photo there that's actually our free choice trailer at home, the idea being that the livestock will self-select their minerals to balance their own requirements. As an international example though, Miles and I were lucky enough to spend 4 days in the French Alps with Nuffield scholar and shepherd, Joseph. And shepherds have been using this experiential knowledge for thousands of years. He has an incredibly in-depth local knowledge, and he actively works with the complexity and the diversity of his environment. He really values the relationship between the landscape, the plants, the livestock, and shepherd, and he is always observing the physiological and behavioural signs of his flock and then adapting his grazing route to suit. For example, Joseph counts the rumination chews per minute, and that gives an indication of the protein and energy consumed. And he will then adjust his upcoming grazing route in order to allow the flock access to the appropriate vegetation mix so that they can self-select. And of course, this has incredible animal health and productivity benefits. It's from these examples that I learnt that nature is far more complex and intelligent than we could comprehend. And honestly, what a humbling and wondrous thing that is. As farmers, we know the importance of building business literacy and practical skills, but are we valuing and investing in building our ecological literacy? I learnt so much from visiting all these farming systems around the world, but I now feel really motivated to go home and to slow down and to really look and listen and smell and feel and get to know our system intimately, and then get creative with management systems or practices that can better work with the complexity and diversity of our environment. And number 3, at the beginning of this journey, I had a mindset that farming was about scarcity and competition, but now I suspect the real power in building resilience is how nature fosters connection and community. A soil biologist, Dr. Christine Jones, talks about how if a seed germinates with a healthy microbiome and a mycorrhizal fungal network, it can easily establish in what we would have considered to be a competitive environment. And human communities are not that different to plant and fungal communities. I also believe that food can be the ultimate connector, and we in the agricultural industry are in the perfect position to be able to facilitate that. In Georgia, on our GFP, we experienced rich tradition, culture, and connection around wine production and consumption. They were incredibly proud of their 8,000-year-old techniques of fermenting wine buried in clay vessels underground, and they were very proud to share it with new and old friends. In Saskatchewan, farmers Derek and Tanis Axton are also building community into their farming system, and they've done this by investing in an on-farm grain grading and flour mill facility. This has allowed them to shorten their supply chain, value-add products, provide traceable and nutritious products to consumers, increase job opportunities, and build regional industry. And as Derek states, we certainly don't want to be wasteful, but we shouldn't base everything on efficiency. And this can be the downfall of rural regions. Larger machines, fewer people, and prioritising efficiency over community. My final example is from Alberta farmers Casey and Jackie Toes and their family. They sell their beef directly to consumers, and despite investing in considerable nutritional data, they've actually found that what their customers value the most is not necessarily the science, but the story and the relationship. And these examples made me reflect about our food culture in Australia. As farmers, are we proud of the way we grow and share our food? And in the busyness of life, let's not lose our connection to food, to the land that it comes from, to why we grow it, and to those we share it with. I would like to close with a quote from a farmer, Graham Finlayson, from a Regenerating Rangelands event. He said that a disconnect to our land and our community is a greater risk to rangelands and drought. And this encompasses so much of what I have explored over the last couple of years, but also how I think about building a future in Australian agriculture. In a world becoming increasingly reliant on data, technology, and science to drive our decision-making, absolutely use these tools. I certainly do. But let's not lose our ability to observe and to think creatively, to question, to build and pass down local knowledge, and let's value our connection to people and biological communities. Happy farming. Thank you.